Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day. And I hope you are having a fantastic weekend out there so far. Here to give you some updated information about what's going to happen weather-wise for your Saturday. We're starting to get deep into this storm system, and I think today will be the most active day compared to the entire 3-day stretch. You almost could call it a 4-day stretch if you count yesterday, but yesterday wasn't really active. We did have some storms across areas of the country late last night, but all in all, yesterday was not a big day. Today will be a big day. Severe weather risk will be its highest today, most likely, but we will have a severe weather risk for Sunday also. We'll give you some updated information on that. And then tomorrow, we really begin to shift into the winter weather risk, the winter weather side of this storm system, where several inches of snow could add up depending on your location. We'll talk about the rest of the country too for the first half of this video, but we'll start to dig deep into the rest of this storm system for the second half of the video. So if you're really wanting to know just what's going to happen tomorrow, definitely utilize the timestamps, as I will have them up for Sunday into Monday for areas of the country that will see the most impacts for that time frame. So with that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Appreciate the support over the last 7 to 10 days of things have gotten a little bit more active for us. And I just want to say welcome to any new subscribers. I really appreciate y'all folks very much. It's a family type atmosphere on this channel. We look out for one another and we pray for one another. And it's definitely more of a personal feel on this channel. Nothing flashy, nothing crazy. We just come on here, look out for one another, and talk some weather. So with that being said, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. I will catch up with the comments and the prayer requests as we get a little bit deeper into the day, into this afternoon. The weekends are typically pretty crazy, very busy for me and my family. Speaking of the family, if you hear my girls in the background, I have 2 little girls, and they're very active on the mornings of the weekends. So if you hear them, well, I got kids, and like I just mentioned before, it's definitely more of a personal feel on this channel. So with that being said, done yapping my jaw there. Let's yap the jaw about some weather here. So let's talk about what's going on right at this moment, because I mean, this system is already cranking up right now. We do have this initial first low pressure bringing just rain for areas of Wisconsin, even up into the UP of Michigan. This is just rain. Now we are going to get some back end snow as some energy funnels in behind this, but right now, just some rain. There is some snow. We had, a snowy night, overnight for areas of North Dakota especially. It's snowing this morning in northwest Minnesota. Nothing too crazy that you guys can't handle up here. But what's interesting is we do have some snow falling in the panhandle of Texas, even some snow in the panhandle of Oklahoma. This has prompted winter weather advisories, actually. We still have ongoing winter weather alerts in areas of Colorado. There is a system entering the picture in the Pacific Northwest. We will talk about that. We're not going to ignore the West. But, of course, if you just want to know about the West, utilize the Western U.S. timestamp that I will have up in this video. And then we got some heavy rain entering the mountains of basically the southern Appalachian Mountains, and this is also moving into West Virginia. And then we still have some convection ongoing in Arkansas, and then just portions of the Mississippi Valley region. So that's what's going on right now. Let's talk about the alerts. Here it is. It is not upgraded as of now. There will be an upgrade from the Storm Prediction Center, an update, I should say. It could potentially upgrade, but another update around 8:45 Eastern Time. But as of right now, we have a slight risk. This is as of around 7:30 Eastern Time. A slight risk of severe storms stretching from Shreveport, Alexandria, Louisiana, all the way through the entire northern half of Mississippi. All of southeast Arkansas, areas of central Arkansas, Little Rock included, Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. You can might as well include Chattanooga with this, all the way up to Bowling Green. And I'm really watching this area right here, the northern area of this slight risk. I'll talk about why here in a second. But what is this driven off of? The tornado risk? A 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this brown area. Okay, wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. It's always within 25 miles in a given location. I probably don't need to reiterate that 100 times, but there is a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter in this area. Same criteria. In this 15% yellow region, which includes Little Rock to Memphis, down the Mississippi River, not quite to Jackson, but there is a smaller risk of hail today. But with any kind of storms that can get discrete, really become dominant supercells, if that does become a thing today, we'll always have the risk of some large hail. So let's keep rolling. What about the flash flooding risk today? Not a big deal. I think that'll change as we get into tomorrow. There could be some flash flood concerns for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, where several inches of rain could be possible for certain areas, but just a marginal risk in this area. But there is a more concern for flooding along the coastal regions of Washington and Oregon, where you do have a slight risk of flash flood guidance being met. That means you have at least a 15% risk of flash flooding to occur. Talking about alerts out here, we do have winter weather alerts back up for the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Rockies. Winter storm watch up for a couple counties, even in Idaho. And winter storm warnings up for the Cascades. Another active period coming in. We do have some winds whipping around in southern Cal. Some windy times ahead for sure. And we have some high wind warnings, high wind watches up for Wyoming, and then the northern sections of the Front Range of Colorado. We have winter weather advisories continuing for the Front Range of Colorado all the way down into 6 counties in Texas. Let me know how much snow you saw in Colorado around the Denver area. I would love to know. I think the last forecast I checked, we're calling for 1 to 2 inches. Let me know if that verified. Some gusty winds in the northern plains, north central U.S. We'll be here. We got some wind advisories up, winter weather advisories continuing for this purple color. A couple winter weather advisories for the UP and then areas of Wisconsin. We'll see if this expands, and some windy conditions expected for Michigan where we have wind advisories. And then if you look right here, we're starting to get a lot of weather alerts, flood watches littering the entire I-95 corridor. This will probably extend into Boston too. We got high wind watches up for Long Island, Southeast Mass, down east areas of Maine. Winter storm watches up for the colder side of this system. So this is about to crank up. And we will give you guys some details on what to expect. Let's talk about the Southeast first. And we were talking about the severe weather risk in this frame for today. We'll take a broad look at this. We have all the rain going on right now in the mountains of Tennessee, North Carolina. This will continue throughout the morning. We'll probably get a break. And here are these storms slashing through the deep south and mid-south all the way up into Kentucky, and then they'll just make their way through this entire area, and then they'll move into the mountainous regions of North Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and then this will get a positive tilt to it, which means it's tilting down this way, which means, the storms will probably slow down overnight, but Birmingham, areas of northeast Alabama, even southeast Alabama will get some storms overnight. Now, I know you're thinking, Mitch, you went through that way too fast. Trust me. You guys know that's been watching for a while. I got you covered. I'm going to zoom into this and now. So we start off this morning, and we keep this going. And as we make our way into about midday, we already have some storms firing up along the Mississippi River up here in western Tennessee, northeast areas of Arkansas, even some storms in the Boot Hill of Missouri. Here's some storms right in here into eastern Arkansas, even some scattered showers down here in the Mississippi, Louisiana. If you're confused about the time frames that I mentioned at all in this video, please look right here. Back this up 1 hour, because this is mostly in Central Time, most of this, except Georgia, etc., and then areas of the Panhandle. But most of this is in Central Time, so back this up 1 hour, so it's around lunchtime, right? We keep this going, and then we start to get into the meat of the afternoon. We get around 4 p.m. We got some storms down here north of Baton Rouge, getting down here near Hattiesburg, some storms just west of you, storms around or just north of Jackson. And we do need to watch for these storms. I think you'll be lacking a favorable kinematic environment. We'll talk about what that means here in a second, but basically favorable winds aloft for any kind of significant tornado threat. But you also got to watch these storms down here in southeast Alabama that's already getting going this afternoon, and then in the western panhandle of Florida. But these storms you need to be concerned about. And, Memphis points east as we get into the afternoon. They kind of ride Interstate 40, start to kind of sneak into the Nashville area, Huntsville, Florence, and we keep this going. And then we start to get into around 7, 8 p.m. At this point, for most, it's dark outside. We got some storms continuing to work its way through the heart of Mississippi. Some storms are trying to fire down here near the Lake Charles area. We got stormy conditions in North Alabama. Storms starting to get into the Cumberland Plateau. Storms affecting the Nashville area, central Tennessee. And we kind of keep this going. And these really congeal into more so a line of storms. I think they potentially somewhat lose that tornado threat, but I still think it'll be there. Northern Alabama is around 9-10 p.m. Huntsville, the areas of the Cumberland Plateau, brain fart in there. And then we're starting to get into eastern Tennessee, and we start to get some heavy weather that starts to be ongoing. The winds pick up, and these storms really start to make their way through this entire region. Then we start to get into northern Georgia. These storms start to affect you guys, but they will likely lose some steam as they kind of roll into some cooler air that's entrenched in the mountainous regions. We call that cold air damming. More than likely we'll be hanging out that region, but it'll still be storming in North Georgia tonight. And then we'll talk more about areas further east into the Carolinas and Georgia here in a second when we get into our Sunday discussion. But that's kind of the entire daytime and evening period with this storm system. Now, what about that tornado threat? This is what we call the updraft helicity swath that tries to indicate where these storms will be spinning the best, the latest long range. And one thing you'll notice as we make our way through the afternoon, the evening, and overnight hours, it really likes northern Mississippi, northern Alabama into Tennessee, and then eventually into Kentucky, which we'll talk about here in a second. And you're wondering, well, the slight risk extends down into here. Why isn't there much of a tornado threat down here? Well, that's because low pressure is ejecting across basically this portion of the country up here. Along it, there's a low-level jet, a favorable wind field associated with that low. And with the low kind of getting displaced from this area down here, you're lacking a favorable kinematic atmosphere for tornadoes down here. Not a lot of winds aloft, so not as high as a tornado threat down here as there is once you get into the mid-south. But, just because you see a red, that doesn't mean there's a significantly high chance of a tornado. For example, if you live right here in areas of northern Mississippi, it just means this is just one run trying to indicate where these storms will be spinning. Just because a storm is rotating doesn't mean it's dropping a tornado. Remember that. But, we move up into Kentucky and Tennessee. I am concerned about this area today. We start to get into this afternoon. These storms probably won't be more discrete. They will be kind of more linear, which means they're kind of like a line of storms, but there will be embedded spin-ups in this line of storms. I think we'll see our most tornado warning action maybe in Tennessee and Kentucky today. Could be wrong, but guys, I always like to give you my own take on this. But we get later into this afternoon, these storms start to work through western Tennessee. They start to affect, Hopkinsville, Owensboro. They're already have kind of moved through the Paducah area by the time we get into this afternoon. They start to flirt with the Bowling Green region. I think Bowling Green is definitely kind of an area that we really want to watch for, where just enough moist air at the surface kind of moves into this area. And then you have the favorable wind field with the low just to the northwest. But these storms are just slashing through areas, the entire state of Kentucky. I mean, I think we could get some stormy times this afternoon, sometime this afternoon throughout Louisville up to Cincinnati. And then these start to enter the eastern sections of Kentucky, and we will have a line of storms making its way through this area. But I do think they start to lose some steam in this region. Could have some storms also in southern Ohio, but I don't think they have the highest chance of being really severe up here in this region. But you keep this going, and by the time we start to make it probably into, I would say, late tonight, the main severe weather threat really begins to shift. And we'll go on and look at this right here. And if you notice, man, why does it keep doing that? Come on. And if you notice, you keep this going, and then we get late into this evening, the cold air begins to filter in, could have another push of moisture. And then the HRRR model, when we're waking up Sunday morning, wants to try to switch you to a period of snow in the Cumberland Plateau right here in this region. As we're waking up tomorrow morning. We'll talk more on that here in a second. But the updraft helicity swath up here, same deal, guys. It's really liking this section right here of Kentucky, western Kentucky, basically. And this will really get going early this afternoon. Okay, I really, want to watch anywhere from Elizabethtown down to Bowling Green, along the Interstate 69 corridor. So just watch out in this area right here in Kentucky today. We definitely need to be careful with the tornado threat. And this is why, guys, we're starting this off around 10 a.m. If you notice here in the more like red colors and even kind of this brownish color right here, this is winds at about a mile up in the atmosphere. And if you look right here, these are winds pushing 40 to 50 knots. So you got your classic 40 to 50 knot low-level jet screeching across Tennessee, Kentucky at the same time. You got storms moving through this region. So you have a favorable climatic environment aloft for this, to really drive these storms today. So we'll have a favorable wind field aloft, and you mix that with the moisture at the surface, and we're going to do this on the fly here, and we look at dew points. You have dew points that do get into the low, maybe even the mid-60s into Kentucky. So not as good moisture at the surface as you have like down here in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, but there's enough there to tap into this severe weather threat. We call that thermodynamics. Okay, so we need to watch Kentucky and Tennessee especially today, but we can't ignore it obviously in Arkansas and Mississippi as we get into this afternoon. So that's a severe weather threat breakdown for today in that area. Let's talk about the Northeast. Today, it's not going to be a very active day. The system is not moving in today for you folks. If you think it is in the Northeast, that's not true. It'll move in tomorrow more so. But we do want to watch. There could be some elevated storms that make their way through Ohio. I don't think this is anything to worry about. For example, Faye, I know you live in Ohio. I wouldn't be overly concerned about this at all. I really want these could produce some gusty winds, maybe some lightning, but these will make their way, kind of begin to enter areas of southeast Indiana, eventually western Ohio this afternoon, and then they'll make its way through the entire state of Ohio throughout the afternoon, then into the evening, then really weaken as they get into like western PA, West Virginia, western New York. And the first little wave will break up, and then really the meat of this storm for the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, really begins to get going to the south and eventually takes over the entire Northeast as we get into tomorrow. But today, it's pretty quiet weather-wise. It really is. South Central U.S., dealing with some snow this morning. Let me know what you're seeing. If you're watching from the panhandle of Texas, I would love to know. This could drop some additional snowfall accumulation. Some snow could drift into the Amarillo area, and eventually it'll dry up as it kind of cruises the New Mexico-Texas state line. And we get into this afternoon, and I don't want to ignore my folks in Texas. I do think there will be a possibility of a thin line of storms that could develop like just west of Houston and just like northeast of Houston and kind of make its way through. But, you know, I think the severe weather threat for this area has really dropped off. But you guys could see some storms a little bit later this afternoon to this evening. And then this heads on out, guys, and then we're waking up tomorrow morning to some pretty quiet conditions. So this storm system not really packing much of a punch for the South Central U.S. Once upon a time, a few days ago, it was looking more impressive for your area, but it turns out it just wasn't much at all for this region. North Central U.S., kind of a tale of two different air masses kind of right beside each other. A very warm low pressure for this time of the year. Heads almost due north, pretty much is going to work its way over Lake Michigan throughout the morning and just cruise right over the eastern UP of Michigan. Stephen, you might have a low that literally goes right over your area later this afternoon. Just a warm rain. I do want to watch out down here in southern areas of Indiana for some storms. I don't think they'll pack much of a punch, but there will be some heavier rounds of rain throughout southern Indiana throughout the late morning, early afternoon. And then mid-afternoon, and then as we're making our way into later this afternoon, some snow could begin to fall. Some festive light to moderate snow could fall throughout areas of Minneapolis, and then I think some heavier snow could get going behind this back energy right here that makes its way through Wisconsin. Some snow could be falling in the northern sections of Wisconsin, and then your rain will begin to switch to snow even in the UP of Michigan, and we could get some Lake Superior enhanced snow for the western areas of the UP, and could get an area of snow that makes its way overnight, dealing with some just warm rain this morning in these areas. But as we get into the overnight hours tonight, Green Bay, even southern sections of Wisconsin, and then eventually up against, man, that thing is getting all crazy right here. It's kind of glitching up on me, but we could get some snow that makes its way throughout eastern areas of Wisconsin, maybe crosses Lake Michigan, and then we're waking up tomorrow morning with some snow flying around the UP of Michigan, the northern sections of lower Michigan, maybe even some snow shower activity in extreme northern Indiana. Snowfall between now and around Sunday midday. A couple inches of snow is possible, maybe enough to coat the grass for a lot of Minnesota and then the northern half of Wisconsin, especially later on tonight into tomorrow morning. But, you're hugging up against the borderline of Lake Superior. Lake enhanced snow will give you guys several inches of snow potentially for certain areas depending on where you live. Just your favorable kind of lake effect snow regions. So. Out west, most of the western U.S. quiet right now, but a big plume of moisture will plow right into the Pacific Northwest. The Olympic Mountains, the Cascades will begin to see snow. Snow levels will be lower in this case than what we've seen over the last couple of days. Good old-fashioned, just, there I am saying it again, good old-fashioned, but just good old heavy rain for these areas again, like the valleys, Seattle, Medford, Eugene. I don't think Medford, I think more so up to Eugene. More so we'll start to see this heavier rounds of rain. But, this is heavy snow up in the Cascades, and this will continue. We're getting into the late afternoon, evening time frame. Snow begins to pick up in northern Idaho again. It begins to snow in western sections of Montana. This is just rain. Warmer air begins to make its way in, so you switch. The snow levels basically begin to rise in like the Olympic Mountains and some of these higher elevations. So more rain will continue to funnel in as we're waking up tomorrow morning also, and the snow will really begin to add up in areas of the higher elevations of Idaho. So just between now and Monday morning, a lot of precipitation expected in these regions. This has just been the common theme over the last couple weeks, and once again, we're dealing with it again. And, we look at the snowfall. A lot of snow will add up, especially in the northern Cascades. Olympic Mountains could get 8 to 12 inches of snow in these higher elevations up here in the Cascades. And, getting into the Rockies, we'll get a lot of snow. And speaking of, like, Idaho, snow will continue to add up in Idaho. Will continue to add up in western Montana, and even some snow is likely here in Yellowstone National Park throughout the next 24 hours. So temperatures today, very warm in the southeast before the rain moves in. Enjoy it. I know I am going to get outside, enjoy the nice warm day. Probably take the girls to the park, something like that. But definitely a nice day in the southeast. But some areas will have that severe weather risk. So even though it's warm, you're going to be dealing with the chance of severe weather. Cooler air coming in behind this. So, the Midwest, chilly in the 30s. Northeast, you're thawing out in front ahead of this storm system, and then you'll cool right back down. But Maine hanging on to those colder temperatures. You move west, and it's pretty chilly today. It's going to be more of a cooler day compared to what we've seen. I would say most of everybody is at least a little bit below average out here. So let's give you some updated information about tomorrow now and finish off the rest of this storm. There is a marginal risk of severe storms that's actually extended all the way up to the Baltimore, D.C. region, all the way down to Tallahassee, Florida, and everybody in this dark green area. I could see, guys, an upgrade to a slight risk somewhere. Just trying to figure out what that somewhere is. Tornado risk, there is a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this green area. So there's a tornado risk, even in my own backyard here in Columbia. And then the wind threat, 5% risk, hail threat below 5, so don't even show up on the map. So let's talk about the severe weather risk for the Carolinas, Georgia, even up to the D.C., Baltimore region for tomorrow. So we'll start off in the middle of the night tonight. Kind of a very, it looks like a pretty potent line of storms that slashes through the higher elevations of the southern Alps. I think Atlanta, you'll wake up tomorrow morning with some rumbles of thunder, maybe some strong storms. And then as we're getting into Sunday morning, Greenville, Spartanburg, seeing some storms, maybe even the Columbia region up to Charlotte. Some storms making its way through central sections of Virginia. But one area I want to watch is the Eastern Carolinas and then Southeast VA, because the atmosphere is trying to become unstable in this region ahead of all these storms. I also want to watch these storms too that try to push into the coastal regions of North Carolina. So you got kind of two things going on right here, really three things. One thing you got going on is rain's trying to switch to snow back here in the higher elevations of the Appalachian Mountains. Then you got just rain moving through the Western Carolinas. We got some heavier rain, some storm activity moving through the Raleigh region around midday tomorrow. And then we have some coastal storms around midday trying to affect the coastal regions of the Carolinas. We keep this going. I think some kind of unorganized line of storms will make its way through the Central Carolinas, Columbia sometime tomorrow. We have a line of storms showing up right here. We got storms right here. We got a lot going on. But in a nutshell, just know that these storms, especially for like this region right in here, will have a chance to produce some strong to severe storms. So there's going to be a period, I think tomorrow afternoon, where you're going to have severe thunderstorm warnings on one area of North Carolina, and then back into the mountains, the rain is beginning to switch to some heavy snow to end this system. And I think the snow could add up. I mean, I think you could get some back end snow sometime tomorrow evening, even in the Asheville area. I really think it's possible. The National Weather Service is staying conservative with this, but I think you'll switch to some snow tomorrow evening for Boone. And then at the same time, you're dealing with all this crazy weather right in here, and the rain really begins to pick up as a low pressure begins to deepen and really throw in a lot of back end rain to this. So tomorrow afternoon, evening, it's going to be an absolute washout for areas of Virginia into the Delmarva, eastern North Carolina, and then look at the snow falling behind it. It's very interesting, a little setup. Got some snow showers showing up, even in Kentucky, up into West Virginia. We'll talk more on that here in a second, and we'll stop it here. So this will be interesting to watch. And, looking at, let's make sure we got, I knew I didn't show it. If we look at when I have to do this on the fly, if we look at the updraft Felicity swath for this, it really only likes this area of eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia for the highest tornado threat. But we'll see. This doesn't always tell the story, but it does indicate the chance for some rotating thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be wild kind of watching this unfold. A little bit like a tick further west, though. Let's talk about the Southern Alps region. All this rain will move in overnight into tomorrow morning. But then as we're getting into tomorrow about midday, cold air begins to catch up with this. We start to get a little bit of light snow activity up here in the Ohio River Valley into Kentucky. And then this rain begins to switch to snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia, maybe even Kentucky. And then look at it switching to snow in the in areas of the Smokies. And yeah, guys, I mean, the back end of this could really drop some heavier snow. Could get some snow in Gatlinburg. But then you look behind this, and you got a more consolidated area of energy making its way through the entire state of Kentucky. So Kentucky could be a day-to-day where you're dealing with a tornado threat. By tomorrow afternoon and evening, you could have some snow showers making its way through. Very, like I said, it's a dynamic system. I wasn't lying when I said that. That's dynamic weather. When, one day you're dealing with severe weather and the next day you're dealing with snow. And it's going to be very possible in areas of the country throughout the weekend. But it's snowing pretty heavily in West Virginia tomorrow evening. And we keep this going and switching to heavy snow in the higher elevations of Virginia. And look at these snow showers off the latest HRRR model showing up as far south as northern Alabama. So, we take it all the way out to about the middle of the night tomorrow night. Still snowing in eastern Kentucky. Still some snow showers showing up in the higher elevations of Tennessee and North Carolina. And it's still snowing pretty good up here in areas of West Virginia, even snowing in areas of Ohio. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I can tell you, the National Weather Service has rebumped up the forecast a little bit from last night's video. But I'm just going to look at the blend of all models, which is what it's showing right here. I think it has a great grasp on this. Going for a dusting of snow in Asheville, a few inches of snow in areas of the Smokies, but I think more snow than what this is showing could fall. I really do think it could. But we'll see what happens. The latest long-range HRRR model is going for higher snowfall totals in this region. Let's see if we can get it back on our screen since it went away. It is going for higher snowfall totals just in general. Shows that possible snow in the Cumberland Plateau, those kind of trace the dusting amounts in Kentucky, and just so shows, quite a few inches of snow, maybe several inches of snow in some of these higher peaks of West Virginia and the southern Appalachian Mountains. So it'll be an interesting development with this. Now the Mid-Atlantic, man, as we get into tomorrow afternoon, a lot of heavy rain develops. Gusty winds develop in the Delmarva, points northeast up the 995 corridor. We start to get into tomorrow afternoon, then tomorrow evening. A wind-driven rain really picks up. It is raining like crazy up here into the Delmarva region. There will be a low-end severe weather threat as far north as Washington, D.C., all the way up to Delaware. I don't think it'll be that bad, but there will be a risk. And you got really two main things happening right here, right around 8 to 9 p.m. tomorrow. You got rain changing to back in heavy snow in central PA, western Maryland, West Virginia. And you got a wind-driven heavy rain along the big cities of the I-95 corridor. I mean, even, just eastern PA, Washington, D.C., raining like crazy. And we keep this going. We get all the way to the middle of the night. This is as far as the HRRR model goes. Raining like crazy in these areas. I mean, it's really going just off the coastline, but it's switching to heavy snow and central PA based off the latest HRRR model. Still got some heavier snow kind of wrapping its way around this. Maybe Pittsburgh, kind of some burst of heavy snow. And even northern sections of Virginia trying to switch in some snow, around the Harrisburg region. We got to see if that actually comes true. And yeah, we stop it right here. This is as far out as it goes, and it's snowing pretty good. And I think this will linger all the way until Monday morning. So if we're talking about how much rain we could see, guys, I mean, 2 to 3 inches of rain from North Carolina through Virginia, the Delmarva region, through New Jersey, Delaware, all the way up into southern New England. I mean, it is going to be a washout. The rain's going to fall fast and furious. It's going to be a lot. Okay. And then we look at the snowfall. Blend of all models, keeping it pretty just normal in this region. A few inches of snow is likely in the western areas of Maryland, higher elevations. And then we get into PA, and a couple inches is possible. Could get a little snow in Pittsburgh. Could get a little snow in Scranton. And I really am favoring northern and northeast PA. And we start to get into New York, and I think that's where the most snow could fall. And speaking of these winds, guys, it's going to get very windy along the coastal regions like the Jersey Shore, the waterways here in the Delmarva region, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts. And I think Long Island could get 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. Scattered power outages are possible. But even back here in PA, guys, 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. Then we move a little bit further north. Last gasp of the system. Rain begins to take over the entire Northeast Sunday afternoon, and it's just good old-fashioned rain for most of the Northeast. And then it really picks up in Boston, and it's just rain in Maine. And then it really switches to very heavy snow back here in New York State, the Adirondacks. It starts to switch to snow, tries to switch to snow in Binghamton. In the southern tier, it's snowing. And this continues, and then it switches to very heavy snow across areas in New York State, northern areas of Vermont, all rain for most of New Hampshire, Maine, southern New England. So we need to see how this evolves the rest of the way, but this is as far out as the HRRR model goes. We can actually look at let's look at the latest European model. I'm favoring the latest European model. Let's see what it shows for this region. In the European model, if we keep this going past the range of the HRRR model, we get into Sunday morning, and the rain begins to really switch to snow for a good portion of Vermont. That rain snow line creeping a little bit further east, starting to snow pretty heavily in western Maine, northern New Hampshire. And then we start to make our way into Monday afternoon. Some rain switches to some light snow, even in western Mass. And then this heads on out. So how much snow is expected? How much rain is expected? Precipitation, I would say, because some of this will fall in the form of snow for the Northeast. It's just widespread 2 to 4 inch rainfall totals and precipitation totals. Washout and coming. As far as snow, National Weather Service going for a pretty substantial winter storm for the Adirondacks. A widespread 10 to 12 inch snowfall totals. And even going for the southern tier. I know I got some viewers in this region. Going for 2 to 4 inches of snow in this region, guys. Binghamton, they're going for around 4 to 5 inches of snow. So it'll be interesting to see if this verifies. But this is the National Weather Service. I'm not showing the blend of all models here, but look at Vermont. Good bit of snow for northern Vermont. Not as much for New Hampshire. We'll see how that evolves. We go up to Maine. And this only goes out to Tuesday morning. But Maine through Tuesday morning, not showing a whole lot. You got to get into the western sections of Maine. So we'll see how this evolves. The last little bit of this, Long Island to the coastal regions of Delaware and southeast Mass, the typical high wind areas, and then up into the downeast areas of Maine. We'll see the highest winds from this, talking 40 to at times 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible in these regions right here. Power outages are likely for certain areas, in the down east areas of Maine could get close to hurricane force wind gusts with this. I think Nova Scotia, New Brunswick needs to watch out. I don't have a panel up. I'm sorry for you guys. I'll try to do it this evening. But very strong winds in the down east areas of Maine, just the coastal regions of Maine, expected 40 to as much as 70 mile per hour wind gusts are possible in this region. Guys, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll try to do it again this evening. Y'all have a great Saturday. Stay safe. Stay safe.